for the lovely 5D mystic and or educator, the person who is aware of themselves as a human baby. We use our left and right mode, and so we take ownership, accountability of our thoughts, the left mode, and so the chit-chatter, and of our sensations. We're able to have an emotional body that's connected, so that requires your awareness that those who don't, as Patrick Tiahan points out, will find themselves acknowledging that there's a disconnect. And so let's say somebody is treating you like shit. People who have childhood trauma don't actually get angry or feel disgust. There's a couple of ways and more. The people who are experts in it, like Patrick Tian, and he has a group. So anybody who might have childhood trauma and or emotional disconnect, just know that there are people who are healing, and in their healing, they understand codependent type relationships, and that Reiki alone, and I'm a Reiki practitioner, doesn't do anything for you. So codependent relationships, I'm just going to use Patrick Tiahan's model because it's really straightforward. Superiority and martyrs are the ones who want to change you. The ones who self-blame, they want to take care of you. And they're both with low self-esteem, and you see people out there living this unfinished business stuff because sometimes it doesn't involve abuse or neglect from childhood trauma, but it does involve attachment wounds. So insecure attachment leads people to also not be aware of their emotional body because there's a disconnect for the avoidant. The anxious gets overly preoccupied. They don't know how to self-regulate. They get very anxious. And then there's the fearful avoidant and or the fearful anxious. And in either cases, there's a nervous system that's in the fight-flight mode and always agitated. So the fragmented sense of self actually is confused, and it's a really frazzled life for them when they're building relationships because their attachment system, which every human being's attachment system, longs to be seen, to be soothed. So once instead you're a secure person, and that's for some of us like I, and that's why we talk about the differences. So 5D community is a community that takes ownership of thoughts and emotions. We can talk about things, and if you're an insecure, emotionally speaking person, we will notice it because low self-esteem will be noticeable because of the tone you use, because of the charge you come in, and because adaptive children, which are all people who have not yet taken ownership of their charge states. So to the average bear or bearette, meaning the average person who watches Mean Girls and Hangover and does what they think is actually human nature, which it's not. Our nature is actually to be loving if we're in a safe body. Thank you, Stephen Porges, for that. So I'm going to get to him in a minute. He's the polyvagal theory doctor, and he's still building his empirical data to consistently prove to the lovely community about how our nervous system works. And I say lovely community because there's so many different types of scientific educators. I'm the pseudoscience woo-woo lady because I'm a 5D mystic, and I'm good with that because I like to acknowledge that I may not remember all names or all data, but I do know where to go find it because I love education. Empowering education, not fake conspiracy stuff. And here's where creating conversation about the 4D plane is important, because while AI, and I'm really not sure which groups or who's trying to create fake, the whole disinformation, I find it quite interesting. Why would somebody humorously do something like that? But then again, I'm a person who loves life. So some people, they don't love life because they don't love being human. In fact, just watch the movies where they make us out to be parasites and, they attack our own species. It's always been something. I'm like, what are you doing? You're a human baby and you're actually attacking your own species. That looks kind of dumb to me. I learned how not to say it because apparently all people have some stereotype or generalization about human beings and their nature not being love. So there you go. But now we have Sadhguru, who's a guru, who's saying human nature is love. And we have Stephen Porges, who's a science man. And he, in fact, left his idea to become an entrepreneur to continue his research in the research lab because he likes doing research. And him and his wife were going to write a book about love. And here's why we're talking about love right now, because love, it ain't about waiting around for people. If you have unfinished business, there's people like Patrick Tiahan who talk all about how people who hurt people can learn to do the work. Because yes, there may be disinformation, but it's pretty clear if you're using a brain that wants to enjoy life versus a brain that wants to keep life in contempt. And on that note, we're going to bring in our lovely Terry Real in a minute. And adoptive children, they're the teenager at the good portion. So that means they're going to say life's unfair, the external and system are all mean, and this is the teenager doesn't trust anyone. Thank you to my teacher, Sue Martin, who explained to me all of us human beings have the charged parts. And the last one, the 14, 15, 16-year-old, is the one that usually leads. And if you're not even friends with your 0, 1-year-old, the attached panicky, then you're going to have not only inner conflict, you're going to also be pissy in your pants in a lot of different ways. So here's where, again, Patrick Teahan, hurt people who hurt people. You may not have brought about your unresolved trauma, but you can take ownership for it. And I thank him for that, because people like me, we know of love as easy. And when we meet people who instead actually have unfinished business, unresolved trauma from something that's important, and we try to help, you know what happens? Mystic or not, because see, even if I didn't have my clairs, all of what 43 years of life have been so far, they're beautiful. And I knew something was up with the whole hurt people, because I have a heart, you have a heart. I mean, this doesn't change the equation. And yes, my lovely Jesus, thank you for teaching me how to forgive, because they do not know. And thank you, Stephen Porges, for letting me know, yes, biological rude people don't know what they're doing. And oh, here's where Zombieland, I was watching this man interview a neuroscience person on consciousness. This one's going to be interesting, because I love that one. I need to look him up. So he explained how in experiments in the neuroscience labs, they actually have done something where they show in one eye an angry person, and in the other they send flashes of colors. So they send the flashes of colors in your right eye, because see the right, or wait a minute, which one? Right? I forget. Anyways, the right side of the brain. So the right mode of the brain is where you're going to be getting the flashy colors, while the left mode of your brain, if I'm remembering correctly the interview. Long story short, though, one area, when there's flashing lights, basically a person will not even notice the angry eye. And they are basically finding that consciousness is something that exists. So the neuroscience, the brain science people, okay? And they were talking about all the philosophers, because philosophy's philosophy. They're using technology to see things. What was fascinating was when he came to this topic or concept of zombies. And he explained there's like 2 types. I need to, again, get more information. But I was like, okay, that's why we got a 4D collective talking about zombies, because you got neuroscience people doing research. But 4D takes it out of context and creates all of their stories about aliens. And why? Because as a mystic, I know what the 4D mystics are imagining in their mind, because here's where, let's get Patrick McNamara in on board. And as he talks about the religious self and how we actually expand, and in REM sleep, we come together. There's all these different topics that I'm confusing all of you right now. So I'm going to put it to pause for a minute and just say we'll keep talking about it in an episode soon. But it's not confusing to me. To me, it's like, wow, imagination land, it's awesome. And for mystics, it's not just imagination, but the 5D mystic knows it's in our mind's eye. So we're not going to be like, reality is what I saw in my dream last night. No, reality is me and you talking, and that's about it. You see, the trauma memory is what people don't understand. Thank you, Patrick McNamara. And so those nightmares, which is where 4D is at, and they're creating a lot of shit shows because they don't like technology. And now with AI, they even have more fuel for how they're going to put people against each other. No, not really, because we have 5D educators. So thank goodness there's people like I who are like, yep, woo-woo lady, it's good. But hey, by the way, there are people who have mystics and they use it responsibly. And that's because we know, like I was saying, holistic, spiritual, all that middle doesn't help a person to heal from their unfinished business. No, what helps a person to heal is something called life. So love is being yourself with flaws and imperfections, and living life with the loved ones that are going to always be twin flames, soulmates, all of it. Nobody abandons ship. In fact, there's no separation drama for a 5D mystic and or functional adult human being who takes ownership about being themselves. That's because love doesn't wait around or accept inaction. Inaction means you're uninterested in living life. So therefore, you can continue expanding consciousness elsewhere. We instead stay connected to continue expanding consciousness, because the part about life is that we support each other to grow up. Relationships are important. Trauma is relational. Only intimacy can get you out of that. So intimacy is the core. And first of all, though, intimacy with yourself. So when you are a person who's 5D, your relationships are forever, because you have 24 hours. So we're not going to use our time in inaction. We're going to use our time to love each other. And when people don't love and they choose fear, that's okay. They have unfinished business, and they can continue to look at their unfinished business, hopefully with good therapy, because as Patrick Teahan points out, hurt people who hurt people can do the work, and there's plenty of good information online. So We will continue our conversation. I'll do another one. In the meantime, if you don't tune back in, thank you for stopping by, and see you soon.